Hello and welcome to all of you 7,948 subscribers, channel members, LinkedIn watchers, and of course first-time viewers to what is going to be a highly engaging and we hope insightful session here today on the CISO Experience, where I'm joined by Hadas Cassorla for another insightful episode. And after meeting Hadas at an InfoSec Live event in Tampa this year, to say I'm excited is a little bit of an understatement about this show. She's a standout figure in cybersecurity, blending her professional expertise with the art of improvised comedy. Her diverse background encompasses roles in business, law, IT, and the military, equipping her to excel as a Chief Information Security Officer. But not just confined to the digital security realm, Hadas also shines as the GM for an improv theatre and a performer too. Performing in cities around the world, she showcases her unique talent for balancing serious cybersecurity strategies with a flair for improvisational comedy, bringing a refreshing dynamism, can't even say that word today, to both fields. But before we bring her on, and for those that are new to the channel, my name's Simon Linstead. I'm the founder of the InfoSec Live community. And by sharing stories and best practices here over the last few months, we've had over 130,000 views. Thanks to all of you amazing watchers and subscribers. And for those that haven't subscribed yet and do enjoy our content, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button and make sure you ring that bell to be notified of all of our future shows. And let's not forget that this all started with the global InfoSec Live community, which is now over 5,500 strong and growing fast, where we have study groups, mentor sessions, and regular networking events to help you raise your game in cyber, with a brand new leadership focused channel encouraging collaboration and knowledge sharing launched a couple of weeks ago. And of course, it would be remiss of me not to mention our amazing community-driven in-person leadership events in both the UK and the US, with 24 dates being released this week for 2024. Check out our events page for more information. Our next events are actually next week in London to coincide with Black Hat Europe on the 5th, 6th and 7th. Link for the events page and our community site will be in the event description here on YouTube. And a quick thank you to our latest channel members, Marianne, Philip Nicholas and Carlos. Carlos, my man, your support is greatly appreciated. And if you'd like to support the wider InfoSec Live community, or buy me a cheeky decaf coffee, we do have 3 tiers of membership options available right here on the channel. But whether you join or not, being here and engaging with our content is what really matters. So if you're watching this live or on the replay, please do like and subscribe. And as we want to make these events as interactive as possible, for those who are tuning in live, please make sure you drop any questions in the chat and we'll do our best to cover them all throughout or indeed at the end of the session. You'll be pleased to know Simon's going to take a breath. Time for the show and bring Hadas on. Welcome.
Thanks. Have you ever heard of under-promising and over-delivering?
I have, and I don't know if it's the same for the audience, but you sounded a little bit like a Dalek in my ear then. I don't know if it's my earpiece.
Is this better?
No, it's quite good. It sounds a bit like Buck Rogers from the 25th century. Not that anyone watching this will probably know what that is. But
I don't know what to do about that.
Well, let's see if the audience could let us know if you're hearing the same. If it's not and it's me, I shall remove this earpiece and try with the normal audio. But we can hear you.
Do I sound like I'm going to destroy you?
If you say it like that, yeah. And I'm a little bit pale with worry. Yeah. Yeah, there we go, Brian. Audio is popping popcorn. So I'm not sure what that is, because when we spoke literally 6 minutes ago, Hadas, it was absolutely fine. Or as Prashant said, Metal Mickey would be proud. And although that is a US TV series, Prashant, I think it was just us in the UK who became obsessed with Metal Mickey in the 80s. I could be wrong. Here we go. I can't hear you at all now, so... Shall we mime? Is it 4 words? Yeah. One moment, I'm getting there, yeah. I could juggle, but I haven't got my juggling balls up here to keep people entertained. I suppose I should, while we're waiting for this, just encourage our audience to drop any questions you may have in the chat all the way through. For me, one of the most important things about this show over the last 2 years has been the engagement for our audience. So if you do have any questions, please drop them in. Good to see you, Nick, as well. I still can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Oh, here we go. This is improvisation at its best, this is. Brian's playing lounge elevator music for us. Thanks, Brian. Let me just check it's nothing my end. No, I haven't muted you. No. Oh, it's a film, isn't it?
Mute. Okay.
Yay! I
right.
can. Brilliant.
Woo! Do you need some butter with that popcorn? Wow.
A little bit. Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Hey guys.
Well, look.
Nothing like technology, right?
It's brilliant, isn't it? It's brilliant. Thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on. Really, really appreciate it. Mentioned earlier on that we met briefly in Tampa at one of the events this year. And I mean, your input was very insightful and also very entertaining. So I've been looking forward to this for a very long time.
God, now I have to make people laugh. Simon, come on.
I know, I'm really setting you up here, aren't I? Sorry. Yeah. Okay, let's start off with the serious bit then. Let's start with the serious bit. So for the audience, I gave a bit of a background about you at the start. Any blanks to fill in, reasons for getting into the industry? Can you give us a bit of background on how you've ended up where you are today?
Yeah, sure. It was 100% by accident. All I'd ever wanted in my life was to either be an actress or a lawyer. And I went to school to be an actress. And then about a year and a half into college, I realized that I wanted to make money instead. But I wasn't ready to like be in school really. So I quit, joined the Army, and started doing computers. I was a sysadmin. I really had no plan or path. I just knew eventually I was going to be a lawyer. So after I got out of the Army, I went back to school and I got my bachelor's degree. And then I was like, all right, I'm not quite ready to go to law school, but I don't want to not go back to school because I know how hard it is to start back up again. So I just, I did my MBA instead. And then I went to law school. And about 2 years into law school, I was like, I hate this. And I was going to quit. And my girlfriend was like, my best friend in law school was like, everybody hates this. And I was like, all right. So I got my law degree and then I passed the bar and then I started practicing law and I never stopped hating it. And just hated it.
What discipline were you in?
I was doing what we like to call door law, in that I would take whatever walked in my door. But mostly I was concentrating on employment law. But I just didn't, practice of law is not for me. But all the time I was going to school, I was also working full time, and I was working in the IT industry, and I was doing everything from sysadmin to business analyst to project management, program management, etc. And so when I finished practicing law after 2 years, I went back to IT and I fell into a business analyst role. My first day there, my boss was like, hey, you have a law degree. And I was like, I do not practice law. He's like, I don't need you to practice law. I just need you to like tell me what this stuff means, what these regulations mean. And it was basically the NIST 800-53, and it was implementing it. And I had 4 months to do it. for the IRS, the IRS was going to audit us and everything. And I did it. We did it. It's very easy. When that is what your company is relying on to do business, you get a lot of leeway. You get a lot of blank
all of a
checks.
sudden you have resources coming out of your ears.
Yes. So we did it, and I just fell in love with it. I fell in love. I think it's really this nice coalescing of all of my background. And I mean, even my theater background, because especially as a CISO, you have to sell. You're constantly selling your program. You're constantly selling your needs. You're constantly selling the idea of security in your company. And so I think that having a theater background really helps with that, helps with the storytelling, helps with the business geek to IT geek back to business geek translations that you have to do. So yeah, and I couldn't have planned it better, and I wouldn't have planned it if I'm being honest, but I love what I do now.
It reminds me a little bit of that Steve Jobs speech called Connecting the Dots. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I don't think I have. No.
It's well worth a watch, where he's talking about when he went to college, what he went for, and the college he went to, it was a course that he wasn't interested in, a bit like you in law, a bit like me in financial services. But the college itself specialized in calligraphy, had a calligraphy department. And to fill some of his gaps in the time he had when he was there, he booked onto a calligraphy course. And it's only because of that calligraphy course that we have as many different font types that we have now on our computers, because the Mac was obviously the one that had all the fonts to start with. And that's the speech amazing. Is all about him sweeping the floors and all the other jobs that he's done, all coming together at some point in his life to kind of form the perfect storm for that job that you actually finally enjoy.
This is advice that I often give, especially to people just starting out in their career. And, the big question I get from people of oh, how do I become a CISO? And I'm I don't know, just don't worry so much about that. Challenge yourself, make sure that the work you're doing is challenging and interesting. And if you see an open door, walk through it. And because even if you start doing something that you hate, like law, for 2 years or 5 years, if you count the amount of time I was in school as well, the things that you gain from it are fungible. You can move that to a different job and eventually find a career you love. But I feel try things on for size, really try them on for size. Don't quit just because you've done it for 6 months and you don't need it. Really try. And then if you hate it, quit and move on to something else. But the experience and the knowledge you gain will definitely translate into something in the future that you can't even know right now. The other thing is when I was leaving the Army, it was 1997. It was back in the 1900s. It was 1997. And while there was cybersecurity and there were even probably some CISOs back then, it wasn't this career that people were clamoring for. It wasn't really this known entity. And I think today, if you're just starting out in cyber, having the goal of being a CISO might be excited. You don't know what 20 years from now is going to be.
I think that the biggest problem I see, and from myself trying to come in from a pretty misguided position or uninformed position of wanting to become a penetration tester, had I have actually known that you had to spend 60% of your time writing reports, never would have wanted to do that job in the first place. It was the glamorization of having my hood up and hacking away on a keyboard. And I think the industry is full of mismanaged expectations in that respect, as to not understanding what the roles are that they want to have. And for me, the life lessons that I've learned through my self-destruction, my successes, my failures, is that you need to understand what you really want first, and you need to get that before you start thinking about what job that is.
Yeah, I think people also glamorize, unless you're a CISO, people glamorize the role of a CISO. It's oh, I'm in charge of everything, and it's that's not really what we do. And I was on an AMA on Reddit once, where there were a bunch of trolls saying it was an all women CISO AMA. There's a bunch of trolls just being like, you guys aren't really technologists, blah, blah, blah. Why are you even in this role? And I'm like, I have a technology background, A, but B, the fact that you're asking that question makes me know that you have no idea what the role of a CISO is. Like, we're strategists, we are leadership, and so our focus is team building and growing relationships and sales. Like, if your CISO's hands are on the keyboard, they're not doing their job properly.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think you see a lot of that on LinkedIn. You know, what makes the best CISO? Is it a technologist or is it a strategist? And you're absolutely right. The people who are normally commenting on that are normally the ones who don't actually understand what the role is at all. Not that I understand, because I've never been a CISO, but I'm fortunate enough to know a few. Yeah. So talk to me, going off subject, because that's what I do with my ADHD rattled brain. Talk to me about the improv stuff as well.
I'm hysterical.
See? Did you see that? Burst out laughing.
You know, so I was a theater major for a while, and I wanted to be an actress. And then when I got out of law school, I wanted to do community theater, and I'd go and audition for these shows, and I'd get in them, and then I hated it. And it's not that I hated the acting or being on stage, it was that I hated having to memorize all these lines and all the rehearsals. And like with improv, you just get up there, you get take a suggestion from the audience, and bing, bang, boom, you make a scene. If it's great, yay. If it sucks, nobody remembers tomorrow. You know? But having said that, like, improv is awesome because it really touches on like the things we need for team building, the things we need for communication. I always recommend to people who want to go into management, or even people who are in management, that they should take an improv class, because it really teaches you how to be empathetic. It teaches you to listen, and be present. And if you can be those things, man, I don't think I would be an executive if I hadn't taken an improv class at all. I just think it made me a nicer person.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two words there, empathy and being present, for me are the two that seem to be most missing from many leaders, not necessarily technology leaders, but leaders I've worked under in my career. It's a couple of traits that they definitely could have helped by going along to an improv class. Let me bring up a couple of questions. I'm going to move you to the top so I don't cut your head off. There we go. Prashant, quick question from you. Good to see you again. How important is it to have a sense of humor in a CISO role when dealing with difficult senior management board level directors?
I mean, I guess my perspective is it's important to have a sense of humor when breathing. Like, you just, like, I just can't imagine, if you are not enjoying your role, if you're not enjoying the company you're keeping and giggling with each other, like, yeah, right? It's like, what are you doing? I feel like also, if you can make people laugh, you can make them relax. And if people are relaxed around you, you start having real conversations instead of, you know, this robotic transaction with your board. And it humanizes you and it humanizes them. And then nothing's as scary as it was in your head before going into your first board and being like, oh, you know, it's like you have to, have a sense of, I think it's 100% important to have a sense of humor.
I think for your own mental sanity, you need a sense of humor to get through life, right?
I mean,
is that just my life? I don't know.
I mean, you've met me. Is my humor helping my mental sanity?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is.
Well, thank you.
Prashant's got another question here. How frustrating, and this question, by the way, comes up not from Prashant, but every live stream, this whole topic comes up about the way vendors approach CISOs. So the question is, how frustrating is it to deal with vendors who make those unsolicited phone calls when you don't really have an interest in their products?
Okay. I hate it. Everybody hates it. Everybody hates it. I hate the LinkedIn messages. I hate the phone calls. I hate the emails. I especially hate the phone calls because, you know, everybody works remote. So I use my personal phone number. So it's like really annoying. And I also hate it because as a person who now has empathy, and I answer the phone sometimes by accident, and all of a sudden there's this salesperson, and all I really want to do is be rude, but I don't really want to be rude because I might need to work with them in the future. And I also, have I have a brand, and I don't want to ruin that by being a real jerk to someone. So yeah,
there's enough people doing that for you, I think, isn't there?
Thanks, Simon. So what I do now is I mostly don't answer my phone because the people that know me don't call me, and the people that call me,
I don't know how to take that comment. But
I just don't talk on the phone. I do Zoom calls, I do whatever.
Yeah.
But if I do accidentally answer the phone and it's a salesperson, I'm usually very nice when I tell them, I'm sorry, I'm not interested, and just hang up.
Yeah.
Because also I figure that their job is to make as many calls that are connective as they possibly can, and I'm not going to be one of those. So I get off the phone as quickly as possible so they can dial with somebody else.
And what, following on from that, how could they approach it differently? What could they do better?
There's nothing they can do better. I understand that 1 out of 10 or whatever the numbers are. And so it works to cold call. I understand it. I really do. I hate that I'm on their list, but I understand it. If they actually want my attention, a warm handshake or spending money with companies like you that connect vendors with CISOs, that's the way to actually get my attention. The phone calls are, I would say, on me personally, probably don't even work 1% of the time. So I would say warm handshake or be at an event.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that there isn't really a silver bullet to this, is there? And it's a numbers game. We know it works. It does piss people off, but it works. And as long as it continues to work, they will continue to do it. And I think, again, I feel, so I've been in sales a long time, maybe professional sales, some of it, but still sales. And I feel for the salespeople a little bit. Because the way they're targeted is a little bit wrong. We have vendors come on, some of whom pay really good lip service to the fact that business is built on relationships, and we know it takes time to build those relationships, but that's never reflected in the KPIs for their salespeople. Right. But again, what good's a salesperson who doesn't sell? Yeah, is the other point, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and also like the only way to make it stop is for it to stop working. And the only way to make it to stop working is for everybody to just, when they answer the phone, say, no, I'm not interested, and hang up. And as soon as those numbers go down, they'll be like, oh, we have to tackle this a different way. They're not going to go down. It works. It's like spam works. Otherwise it wouldn't continue. Junk mail works, or it wouldn't continue. So especially for the cost analysis for the businesses doing it, it works, and it doesn't work on me. So stop.
It's just the medium. It's the medium that changes, isn't it? I remember when I was younger, when the postman came in the morning, you'd go to the front door and you'd have all that junk mail on your mat. 15 different brochures, different leaflets, window cleaners, local plumbers, all of that. Now it's just all in your inbox. It's the difference, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Next question, if you're ready for it, from Brian. For someone with a background in business management but starting in IT, would you recommend sticking to that admin aspect and making the best out of it, or to transfer to a more hands-on role? Brian's a member of our community. Thanks, Brian.
I don't understand what the question is. I'm so sorry.
If you could rephrase that, Brian. What does he put up there? Thanks for reaching out. Unfortunately, I'm full right now, but make sure to send anything of value to the email on my webpage. Have a great and blessed day. Hangs up. Yeah, perfect. I don't know if you mean, Brian, focusing on your business management knowledge rather than becoming a hands-on keyboard warrior, because...
But what's the ultimate? What is he trying to get to? I recommend sticking to things you enjoy doing and that challenge you. And if you don't like it or it doesn't challenge you, find something new or find the next level of it. That's my recommendation.
And I think opportunities come along for everyone, but not everyone's open to taking them and open to noticing them. And I sometimes wish I won't name him, a friend of mine I went to school with. He's been a carpenter since the day we left school. He is the most content man I've ever met in my life. He's got no need to become, I don't think there is a CISO in the world of woodwork, but he's got no desire to become his own boss. He's got no desire to.
Great.
I know, how lovely. I'm slightly
Yeah.
envious of that, because I'm
I mean,
like
know
you. If
yourself,
I don't
right?
like something, I'll go and do something else until I find something I do like.
So Brian, I do have one caveat to what I've said, which is it sounds like you might be asking if it will behoove you to do some hands-on keyboard time. And the answer to that, I think, is yes. And I don't think you need to become, the world's greatest coder or a principal architect or anything like that. But I think you need to understand technology at that level to some degree, so that you can have the conversations you need to have with your team. So like, I learned how to code in the Army. I learned how to code in Ada, which only the Army uses. I have also taken some coding classes since then, here and there, just to kind of understand. But I am not a coder. You would not want my hands on the keyboard. You barely want my hands on the keyboard for an email, if I'm being honest. But I do have the understanding of that work, and I think that does help me have the conversations I need to have with my team, and also know how to trust who's at the level that they need
Who actually
to be.
knows what they're doing. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, if you say that you learned to code in the Army, the last time I actually did any coding that worked was on this thing, which I think was BASIC back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'm the
I
same.
actually did learn how to code in BASIC when I was a
Yeah.
child, because
Yeah.
I grew up in the 1900s.
Very, very young child like me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for the question. But yeah, it seems, I think, Brian, I think we might even have a meeting later on today if it's the same Brian. And I know you're looking to transition into the industry. And I think for me, what Hadas has said is spot on. It's making sure that you're going to go and do something that you're going to enjoy, because we spend a lot of time working, and just because someone else's idea of success is becoming a pen tester or a SOC analyst, it doesn't mean that
Or
yours
a
has to be.
manager.
Or a-
I had a friend at the last job I had that loved being an individual contributor, loved it. But because he was so good, they moved him into a management position, and he just hated management. But he was like, well, that's the next level in the role. And I was like, no, it doesn't have to be. Like, you can be a mentor or a lead without having to manage people. Managing people is different than being really good at the work you do. Managing people is the EQ. It is the soft skills. It is the empathy and the presence and the listening and the learning how to help people grow forward in their career. So yeah, I think that there's like this weird thought process that once I get really good at stuff, I have to become a manager, and that's just
I completely agree. And I think, dare I say this out loud? Probably.
Do it.
I will. Okay. So for me, I've spoke to a lot of CISOs over the last 2 years, and the ones who are very good at empathetic listening and all the stuff that we've been talking about are probably in the minority, if I'm perfectly honest, without pointing fingers and ruining relationships I've got with
You want to
anyone
name
I've
some
spoken
names?
to. Yeah, I won't do that. For me, we talk about, or the industry talks about, a skills gap all the time. I wonder whether that gap is at the top of the industry in the leadership space, because we've got so many people who were amazing at their technology jobs that now, because of you just like you just said, have now been thrust into leadership positions.
I honestly, I've been on the job hunt since mid-September because of a riff at my company. And the people I've spoken with who are interested in hiring me, and this has been several companies now, what they are looking for is to have somebody who has storytelling capability, have somebody who has the empathy. They've recognized that the people that they've had as this leadership role before that were strictly technologists and didn't have that other aspect of it were scaring people, were not making the connections that you need to make, and not bringing people on board to the security program. Instead, kind of making people shy away from it, which is the worst way to have security.
It is. It's the old, oh no, here comes the security guy. Let's turn the other way. Right?
It's more like, oh no, here comes the mall cop. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I love that film. Paul Blart. Good film. Yeah. Next question. it's going to be
can't
for me,
believe that
actually.
you just told the public that you love that film.
I know it's sad, isn't it? I've got a whole list of really bad films I could continue with, but I probably won't. Monty Python, big fan.
I mean, that's good though.
It is good, yeah. I'm just showing I've got a diverse range of humour. I think
Okay.
that's the point I was trying to get across. For me then, you said that you've been job hunting, which I knew since September. Have you thought about being a field CISO for a vendor?
Yeah, and I've talked to some vendors about doing that. I also have a little side hustle where I do some consulting for companies, from seed stage to scale up companies, to help them get on the right foot of security without having to hire an actual CISO. I like it. I like it. There are benefits and negatives to both sides of that, you know, and so we'll see if anything comes.
We'll see what happens. I mean, the reason I asked the question is because I've seen a lot of people, a few of them who I've had on my show in the last year, who've gone to the dark side from being a hands-on CISO to a kind of vendor field CISO. But the one thing they all have in common now is that they're all complaining to me as to how much time they spend on aeroplanes and different things. So I suppose there's that side of it as well, isn't there? Yeah. Camilo Vasquez has asked a question. What is the most challenging aspect of being, you said Cisco, but then corrected it for CISO. What's the most challenging aspect of being a CISO?
The most challenging aspect of being a Cisco is that some people have brand recognition in the negative. Okay, that was just a Cisco joke. Sorry, it didn't go well. Okay.
I mean, do the thong song.
No. The most challenging aspect of being a CISO, I don't know. I really don't know. It depends on the environment, and I don't think that there's just one thing. I feel like for some people, the most challenging aspect is what we've been talking about. It's that EQ. I think for some people, it's that they want more recognition. I think for some people, it's that they're not getting enough money or whatever. You know what? Here's what I will say. I have lately been giving a talk at different conferences about knowing who your audience is and changing the way you discuss what you do and the benefit of it to their frame of reference. And I think that that's the most challenging thing about being a CISO is learning how to be a salesperson. And by what I mean by that is to know who your audience is and being able to tailor the conversation so that they embrace it from their worldview. And if you can do that, you can do anything.
Absolutely. And as Brian said, he feels like you're someone that he'd love to work with and spend a couple of hours listening to as well. So I think that's got to be the nicest compliment anyone's given on this show before. So thank you, Brian.
Thank you. I will be hosting my own podcast. No, I'm just kidding. Time for that.
Thank you. I think we had another question here. Let me just check to see if I've missed one. No, I think we've.
I see one that says, "Are there any skills you are actively developing in regard to your future career?"
Oh, yes, well spotted.
Yeah. Are there any skills I'm actively developing? This is a great question. The answer is obviously no, because I'm having to think about it.
Okay, are there any skills that you should be actively
developing? You know, honestly, like this is one of those questions like, what's your biggest weakness? I would say that one of the things that I'm really fantastic at is candor. I have candid conversations with people. And I'm very precise with my language, which can, even though I have really good EQ, which can sometimes come off as, excuse my language, but being a dick. One of the skills I'm working on is maintaining the candor while not scaring people with it to start off. I would say that a lot of people that I've worked with who have come to love me said that when they first met me, they were a little scared of me. So that's a skill I'm working on. I'm working on not being scary.
I'd take that as a compliment, personally. Completely. Brian's asked another one here. Let me bring that one in. If you had to start again on your path to becoming a CISO, how would you do it this time? Is there anything you'd do differently? It's a good question, Brian.
I think the answer is no. I think that I would do it exactly the same way. And here's why. people right now who are going down the path of becoming a CISO from school perspective, yeah, they're learning some great stuff, but I don't know that they're like getting that law degree, which I think is hugely beneficial. I don't know. I think, honestly, I'm the perfect CISO.
I think that answers the question perfectly. We don't need to cover it off any more than that. I think let me rephrase that then, so it doesn't sound like I'm blowing smoke completely up your arse. I think you've got all the necessary. I know, that's why I don't want to do it. I think you've got all the skills that you need to be as a CISO, but there are other ways to get them. So there's other ways through, I don't know, being in sales for 15 years to learn about the EQ, and so there's routes in, but having those core skills as part of it is important.
Yeah, I do think that maybe I would have learned more about networking, and I don't mean networking as in shaking hands with people. That I'm really good at. I mean networking as in the technological networking. That was the thing that when I took the CISB, was the hardest one, but I managed it, obviously. But there's when I took the CISB, there were 10 domains. I know that it's now 8 domains. You can't know everything there is to know in cybersecurity, and you can, like they even say, it's an inch deep and a mile wide, which I think is really accurate. So, concentrate on the things you love and figure out how to figure out if other people are experts at stuff, and hire people that are smarter than you. Like those are the best. That's the best team you could ever build.
I think surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you has changed my life the last few years. To be honest, I've hung around with people that are smarter than me all my life. It's been quite easy, really. But particularly in the last few years, it's been humbling how many people in this industry are prepared to give up their time and help other people. In particular, a mutual friend of ours, Mr. Steve Hindle, who's not only supported me, but put me up in his house twice this year. I mean, whoever would have thought that would have happened after meeting someone a year ago on LinkedIn?
Yeah. Well, he's a wonderful guy.
He is a wonderful guy. Okay, Carlos Guerrero, my man, question from you here. Good to see you. What are some tips for evaluating and supporting talent when building a team?
Hire people that are smarter than you.
There we go. Next.
The thing that I think is really important, especially in security field, we all talk about being shorthanded, and we all talk about not having time to train people up, and blah 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 blah. So I think that if you can find people that are personally motivated, that are entrepreneurial in spirit, so that when you hire them, they're not afraid to take risks and take chances, and teach themselves how to do things. And if you can find people who are that, then they can learn anything, and they can become experts at anything, and you can guide them to what you need. So my best teams have been structured with people who are curious, love solving problems, are not afraid of breaking stuff to the extreme, right? The people that have failed working in security for me are people who really need their hands held, really need their schedules dictated to them. And I just think that this industry doesn't really, it has room for people like that. And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I just think, especially with smaller teams, it's really hard to find room for people like that, because you really need people who are innovative and ready to grab the bull by the horns and see what happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great answer. And there's a second part to that question from Carlos, if I can find it. Where is it? Here, part 2 to my first question. And how do you help your teams manage their mental health? Another good question.
I think that this is a good question for any manager. The answer is I have weekly one-on-ones with them that are not, my one-on-ones are not report to me the status of your projects. That's what stand-ups are for. That's what email is for. My one-on-ones are, how are you feeling? What is your happiness level? What could we be doing better? What helps you grow? How can I be a better asset to you? I also monitor their vacation time, and at least most of the places I work have unlimited vacation, and I require my team members to have at least 1 week off every quarter. I just think the level of work that they're doing and the drive that they have to separate themselves. And when they take vacation, for some people, I've done it. I've blocked them out of the system for that week, but I require them to actually take vacation. Like, you don't answer your email, you don't look at Slack, you are on vacation. I think that having that mental break helps the company. Because when you come back, you are rejuvenated. 100%. And also when you actually shut that part of your brain off, all that stuff goes into your subconscious, which is how you solve problems in your subconscious. So
we're talking the same language now. So we haven't spoken about this, but people who've watched this show might have heard me say this before, and if they have, I apologize. So I self-destructed, as you know, I think, Hadas, back in 2018, 2019. I found myself living in a caravan on my own with very little, and it was the most leveling, best experience I can honestly say I've ever had. Looking back at the time, it didn't tend to be, but there were 2 books in particular that really helped me. One was A Beginner's Guide to Buddhism, which, after exploring lots of different types of religions, I felt some form of affinity with, especially with the ADHD and the meditation and the trying to do well. But the second one was a very old book and a little bit misogynistic, written in the 1960s by a guy called Maxwell Maltz, called Psycho-Cybernetics. And at the same time I read this book, I was doing my CompTIA A+. And the analogy that the book used about your subconscious was, imagine that you're a computer system and the peripherals are the bits that take in the information all day. And then when you're at rest, whether you're in the shower or whether you're in bed or whether you're walking the dog or whatever it is you're doing, this is when the goal setting mechanism effectively of your subconscious will then help you work out a way to achieve whatever it is you've been shoving in through those peripherals. And that rang true for me, really, because I've achieved an awful lot in my life. I've swam at a national level, I've built businesses, but I've also really badly destroyed them. And it was the same thing that did both. It was this. It was no one else. It was my perception, no one else's.
So I think we've all experienced that thing where you're trying to think of a word and you can't think of it, and the more you drive trying to think of it, you can't think of it, or you're trying to think of an actor's name and you're like, what is that guy's name? And then, like, as you are falling asleep, all of a sudden you sit straight up in bed and you're like, it's this!
Yes,
and that's because you have stopped thinking about it, and then your processor can actually just process the information and then bring it up. And I just think that that's true about vacation. I also think it's true about burnout. This is the other thing I want to touch on burnout. Well, 2 things I want to touch on burnout. I think that people get burnt out not because it's a lot of work and it's hard. I think people get burnt out because they are not engaged in their work, and it becomes redundant or boring or
monotonous,
lavish, monotonous. And so making sure that your team understands how the work that they are doing helps push the strategy of the company, helps the company achieve its goals, and really tying that in. I mean, OKRs are really the best way to do that. If the company has an objective, those key results are now your objectives, right? Yes. And the more you can tie into that, the more engaged your people are, because when something gets accomplished by the company, you can be like, you did this. Your work helped us get there. So that creates this sense of pride and connectivity, and it's just I love it. I love doing that. The other thing that I want to talk about burnout is if your team is bored, they will get burnt out. So if they are doing redundant activities, repetitive activities, automate them. I mean, that is what technology is for. If they have figured out their job, it's time for them to get more work, new work, more interesting problems to solve. We're hiring problem solvers, and then once they solve the problems, we're like, yeah, keep solving those problems. Nobody wants it. You don't want that. I don't want that. They don't want that. So the more interesting work you can find for your people and help them grow, the less they're going to experience burnout. That's not to say they won't get burnt out, but then you force them on vacation, real vacation.
Yeah, and I think it's very rare that someone actually switches everything off for a week, though, right? We're all still taking a little sneaky look at the phone and just to see if there's anything in Slack, and just have a quick look now and again.
If you show yourself really taking that time off, your team will mirror that. Yeah. So if you stop looking at your phone, your team will know that it's okay for them to stop looking at theirs.
That's a really lead by example. That's the answer, isn't it? We've got time for one more question. And I'll tell you why we're doing 45 minutes today. There's two reasons. One of my friends, my best friend from school, actually had a fairly serious operation in hospital yesterday, which I took him to, took the day off for. But the hospital said to him that he had to have someone staying with him. I'm clearly not staying with him. He's a single man, but my wife has plated up a dinner for him. So I've got to go and drop that off to him. I've then got to pick up my 15-year-old son.
Person.
I know, well, I try. Try to make up for being an arsehole all those years back, Hadas. That's what it is. And then I've got a meeting with Brian, who's on the show here, in about 36 minutes. I'll tell you now, Brian, I am going to be late for that meeting, and I apologise. And please hold on for me, and I'll be back as soon as I can. So I
love that you do your calendaring during your podcast. This is amazing.
It's got to be done. Multitasking, you see, it's something I've learned recently. Yeah. Last question. Well, we'll make it.
Need somebody to schedule your next doctors?
I do really. Yeah. I just need to go to the doctors tonight. That's a whole nother show. We'll talk about that another time.
I can't wait to be the guest on that one.
Do you think the emotional health and care that you provide to the organisation puts your value above the competition's? And by emotional health, Brian means the empathy, respect, and nice talk.
Oh yeah, I'm super valuable. Yeah.
There we go.
Is that the question?
That was the question.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah. Hadas, so finishing off, thank you firstly for taking the time.
Hang on, let me answer that question. Let me answer that question realistically. I will tell you honestly, yes, and not to be braggadocious, but I always had the highest engagement scores. My teams always had the highest engagement scores in my company, and so yeah, I do think that that's true. I think having that empathy and having that engagement and having respect for your employees absolutely does create value for the company.
It does. And you mentioned earlier the fact you do consultancy. Do you do any leadership training? Because if you don't, you probably should.
I have done, yeah. I have, thank you. I have.
Just blowing that smoke.
Thank you. Wow, it's real cloudy down here. Yeah, I have and do help with leadership training as part of my consultancy. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So if I know of anyone who's looking for leadership training, I'll point them in your direction. Perfect. And again, for anyone watching, anyone who needs a CISO at the moment, Hadas is on the market. I expect very briefly. So if you're interested, I'd reach out to us straight away. Do you mind if I drop your LinkedIn profile in the chat here?
Go ahead. Absolutely. And also, I know this is a little bit like self-aggrandizing, but also check out my references page on my LinkedIn. Like,
I'm so going to look at
that out. That's something I'm really proud of. Yeah.
I'm gonna check that out as soon as I get back. Hadas, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Simon. I love you so much. Next time you're in town, you can also stay with me. Not at the same time as you're staying with Stitch, but if his rooms are let, you can come to my house.
Thank you so much. It's most appreciated. And yeah, we've got 24 events planned for next year. I think 2 of those are hopefully going to be in Tampa, and we've got some others around the US. And we are going to be looking for paid speaking gigs for those as well, at the request of the sponsors. So I'll put you on the top of the list next to Steve for that. Thank you so much, everyone.
Stitch and I will also happily do duo speaking. I know
a double act.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Ooh, manager Simon. Love it, Steve. Steve, I'll speak to you on Friday. Hadas, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. Everyone who's jumped in with the questions, again, it's awesome. I really appreciate this. I love it so much. See you all really, really soon.